Hey guys, tonight we begin not with a philosopher or a poet, but with something far more destructive and timeless. A father dividing his kingdom among daughters who may not love him at all. Because, believe it or not, building a casino empire over 30 years and then gambling it all on flattery and pride is somehow even more reckless than texting your ex at 3 a.m. asking if they still think about you. From neon-lit boardwalks to storm-ravaged shores, from penthouse suites to homeless shelters, this is a story less about winning and more about what we lose when we confuse performance with love. So before you settle in, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. A tale of empires built and lost, of loyalty and betrayal, set against the glittering darkness of Atlantic City in 1994. The year is 1994, and the Atlantic City boardwalk glitters like a string of false promises under the autumn sky. Neon signs flicker to life as dusk settles over the shore, casting pink and electric blue reflections across the wet sand. The Leary Crown Casino towers above all others, a monument of glass and gold that has dominated this stretch of coastline for 30 years. Tonight, its grand ballroom hosts a spectacle the gambling world won't soon forget. Leon King Leary stands at the window of his penthouse suite, 80 years old and still broad-shouldered, his silver hair swept back like an aging lion's mane. He wears a burgundy velvet jacket over a black silk shirt, gold rings on every finger that once broke the jaws of men who crossed him. Below, limousines arrive in an endless procession, disgorging politicians, celebrities, high rollers, and the kind of people who only emerge after dark. The valet parking attendants in their red uniforms scramble like ants as camera flashes pop from the press line. This is King Leary's 80th birthday celebration, but it's more than that. Word has spread through the casinos, the boardrooms, the back channels where real power moves like electricity through copper wire. Tonight, the king will announce his retirement. Tonight, he will divide his empire. The Leary Crown is just the flagship. King owns 4 more casinos stretching from Atlantic City to Las Vegas. Hundreds of millions in real estate, hotels, restaurants, parking garages, and entertainment venues. He built it all from nothing, starting as a card dealer in 1958. Clawing his way up through an era when casino business was settled with baseball bats and bodies in the Pine Barrens. His hands are clean now, legally speaking, but everyone knows the foundation was poured with blood and concrete in equal measure. He has 3 daughters, no sons. This fact has gnawed at him for decades, though he'd never admit it. In the mirror's reflection, he sees them entering the ballroom below. 3 women who carry his DNA but not his name, each married, each hungry in her own way. Gina Reynolds, the eldest at 55, arrives first with her husband, Donald, a soft-handed corporate lawyer whose firm handles the casino's contracts. Gina wears a black designer gown that costs more than most people earn in a year. Her dark hair pulled severely back, diamond earrings catching the chandelier light. She has her father's calculating eyes, that same ability to assess a room and know exactly where the weakness lies, where to apply pressure until something breaks. Regina Callahan follows minutes later, 53 years old and draped in emerald silk that matches the predatory gleam in her eyes. Her husband Marcus made his money in Atlantic City construction, the kind of construction that always seemed to win King Leary's building contracts. Regina's laugh carries across the ballroom, too loud, too eager. She works the crowd like she's dealing cards, touching arms, kissing cheeks, always positioning herself in her father's eyeline. The youngest daughter, Cordelia, arrives last and alone. At 48, she's dressed simply in a cream pantsuit. Her light brown hair loose around her shoulders, minimal jewelry. She manages the smallest of her father's properties, a boutique hotel in Cape May that barely breaks even, which her sisters never let her forget. Cordelia moves through the crowd like a ghost at her own funeral. Uncomfortable with the excess, the performance, the whole gaudy spectacle of it. In the ballroom, 500 guests filled round tables covered in white linen and gold-rimmed china. The stage is set like a throne room, a massive leather chair positioned center stage, flanked by enlarged photographs of King Leary through the decades. Breaking ground on the crown in 68, shaking hands with Frank Sinatra in 72, standing before his newly opened Vegas property in 85. Behind it all, a banner reads "The King, 80 years of royalty." Kent Morrison, King's head of security for 27 years, stands near the stage in a dark suit with an earpiece, his weathered face impassive. He's seen everything, knows where all the bodies are buried, literal and metaphorical. He watches the daughters circle their father like sharks who've finally smelled blood in the water. The house lights dim. A spotlight hits the stage. The crowd falls silent, except for the clink of glasses and whisper of expensive fabric. King Leary makes his entrance. He walks through the crowd like Moses parting the Red Sea, and they rise to their feet, applause building like a wave breaking against the shore. King Leary climbs the stage, steps slowly, deliberately, making them wait for it, making them earn every moment of his presence. When he raises one ring-laden hand, the silence is immediate and absolute. His voice booms through the microphone, still strong despite 8 decades. 36 years ago, I opened the doors of the Leary Crown Casino with $300 in my pocket and a vision in my head. Tonight, I stand before you having built an empire. 5 casinos, 23 hotels, more money than I can spend in whatever time I got left. Laughter ripples through the crowd, but there's nervousness in it. Nobody knows where this is going. I got no sons, King continues, and the words land heavy, but I got 3 daughters. 3 beautiful, intelligent women who've watched me build this kingdom brick by brick, deal by deal, year by year. Tonight, I'm gonna do what every king must do eventually. I'm gonna pass the crown. The room erupts in murmurs. Camera flashes strobe the darkness. Reporters lean forward in their seats. At the family table near the stage, Gina and Regina exchange a glance sharp enough to cut glass. Cordelia stares down at her untouched champagne. King snaps his fingers, and an assistant wheels out a presentation board covered with a black cloth. With a theatrical flourish, he yanks it away, revealing a map of the eastern seaboard dotted with colored pins representing his properties. "Here's how this works," King announces. "I'm dividing everything between my 3 girls, the casinos, the hotels, the real estate holdings, the whole operation. But first, I want to hear something. I want to hear, in front of all these people, in front of the press, in front of God and everybody, how much you love your old man. Who loves me most gets the biggest share. Gina, you're the oldest. You go first." Gina rises from her seat like she's been rehearsing this moment her entire life. Her heels click against the marble floor as she approaches the stage, taking the microphone with the confidence of someone who's never doubted her own authority. "Daddy," she begins, her voice smooth as aged whiskey, "you ask me to quantify love, to measure devotion in words. It's impossible, but I'll try. You are the foundation of everything I am. You taught me strength when the world wanted me weak. You showed me how to turn nothing into something, how to take respect that wasn't given and make people offer it willingly. I love you more than eyesight, more than space and liberty, more than life itself. You're not just my father, you're my hero, my teacher. The reason I wake up every morning wanting to conquer the world the way you conquered this boardwalk. Everything I have, everything I am, exists because you breathed life into it. The crowd applauds. King beams like a spotlight. He points to the map, the Leary Crown Casino, the flagship, plus the Atlantic Paradise Hotel and Marina, the Boardwalk Entertainment Complex, and all associated properties. That's yours, Gina. A third of the kingdom. Gina's smile could light the entire Jersey Shore. She kisses her father's cheek, leaving a lipstick mark like a brand. Regina, baby, you're up. Regina practically runs to the stage, her emerald dress shimmering under the lights. She takes the microphone like a weapon, her voice pitched just slightly higher than Gina's was, trying to outdo her sister in pure emotional volume. Daddy, Gina spoke beautifully, but she can't love you more than I do. That's impossible. You know why? Because my love is the kind that hurts. It's the kind that keeps me up at night worrying about you, making sure you're eating right, making sure these vultures in the business world aren't trying to take advantage of your generous nature. I love you beyond measure, beyond words, beyond anything this world can contain. You're not just in my heart, you are my heart. Without you, I'm nothing but an empty shell. My children carry your blood. My husband works in your shadow. My entire existence revolves around the sun that is your love and approval. Nobody, and I mean nobody, loves you the way I do. More applause, louder this time. The crowd is eating it up. This spectacle of filial devotion staged like a heavyweight boxing match. King laughs, actually laughs with delight, and points to the map again. The Diamond Palace in Vegas, the Leary Grand in Reno, the resort properties in Lake Tahoe, all yours. Another third. Regina embraces her father so tightly it looks like she might absorb him. 2 daughters down, fortunes distributed. The math is simple now. Cordelia gets whatever's left. King turns to the family table, his face flushed with bourbon and pride. Cordelia, sweetheart, my baby girl, come on up here and tell your old man what he means to you. Cordelia doesn't move immediately. She sits there, fingers wrapped around the champagne flute, watching the condensation drip down the glass like tears. The silence stretches too long. People shift in their seats. Her sisters exchange another look, this one tinged with satisfaction. Finally, she stands. She walks to the stage slowly, each step deliberate, and when she takes the microphone, her voice is quiet, almost lost in the cavernous ballroom. Nothing, Daddy. King's smile freezes. What? I have nothing to say. Nothing that would satisfy what you're asking for. The room holds its breath. You could hear a poker chip drop. Cordelia, baby, you're not understanding the game here. Your sisters just told me how much they love me. Now it's your turn. Come on, I'm giving you the Cape May properties, the smaller hotels, a good chunk of change. Just tell your old man what he wants to hear. Cordelia looks at him with eyes that carry too much sadness for a daughter addressing her father. I love you as a daughter should love her father. No more, no less. I can't put a price on it or perform it for cameras. When I get married someday, if I do, my husband will get half my heart. That's how it works. I can't tell you that you're my whole world when you're not. I won't lie to you, especially not in front of all these people. The crowd gasps. It's like watching a car accident in slow motion. King's face goes from confusion to red-hot rage in 3 seconds flat. You won't lie. You think your sisters are lying. I think they're telling you what you want to hear. King rips the microphone from her hand. You ungrateful little bitch. I gave you everything. I put a roof over your head, sent you to the best schools, gave you a goddamn hotel to manage, and this is what you give me. Nothing. I'm giving you honesty. Honesty. He's screaming now, veins bulging in his neck, that old violence rising up from decades past. You want honesty. Here's honesty. You're cut off. You get nothing. Not a casino, not a hotel, not a penny of my money. The Cape May property goes to your sisters. You can walk out of here with whatever dignity you got left and make your own way in the world since you re-so goddamn honest. Cordelia's face doesn't change. She sets the microphone down gently on the stage floor and walks back through the silent crowd toward the exit. Nobody moves to stop her. Kent Morrison steps forward from his position by the stage. King, wait. You're making a mistake. Stay out of this, Kent. I've worked for you 27 years. I've never told you you're wrong when you weren't. But you're wrong now. Dead wrong. That girl is the only one of the three who actually loves you. The other two are performing a con, and you're too proud to see it. King turns on him like a rattlesnake. You want to join her. You want to walk out that door too. I want you to think for 5 seconds with the brain that built this empire instead of the ego that's about to destroy it. Get out. You're fired. Security, escort Mr. Morrison off the premises. He's banned from every property I own. Permanently. 2 security guards in red blazers approach Kent reluctantly. He's been their boss for nearly 3 decades. Kent holds up his hands, backing away on his own power. I'll go, but King, listen to me one last time. You're surrounded by snakes, and you just sent away the only people who'd warn you before the bite. He walks out behind Cordelia, and the ballroom doors close with a sound like a coffin lid. King turns back to the crowd, trying to regain his composure, smoothing down his velvet jacket. Where was I? Right, the division. Regina, come up here. His 2 remaining daughters flank him like bookends. He points to the map, dividing Cordelia's properties between them. His hands shaking slightly now. Whether from rage or age, nobody can tell. It's all yours. Split down the middle. I'll rotate between your houses, 6 months each year. I keep my personal security detail, 30 guys, and my personal staff. I want my cars, my drivers, my freedom. You get the business operations, the profits, the headaches. I'm retired as of tonight. Gina and Regina smile identical smiles. Of course, Daddy, Gina says. Whatever you want. In the back of the ballroom, Gary Gloucester watches the spectacle with mounting unease. He's King's CFO. Been with him almost as long as Kent. A thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a nervous habit of clicking his pen. His 2 sons sit beside him. Eddie, 35, legitimate, works as VP of Operations, clean-cut in a grey suit. Edwin, 32, illegitimate, born from an affair Gary had in '62, works in middle management, always watching his half-brother with barely concealed resentment. Edwin wears a leather jacket over his shirt, a gold chain visible at his collar, his dark eyes calculating every angle. Eddie leans over to his father. This is a disaster. Edwin smirks. This is an opportunity. The party continues, but the champagne tastes different now. The music plays, but nobody's really dancing. King Leary sits in his throne chair on stage, his 2 daughters on either side, holding court like nothing happened, like he didn't just disown his youngest child in front of 500 witnesses. Outside, on the boardwalk, Cordelia stands at the railing, watching the Atlantic waves crash against the pilings. Kent appears beside her, his earpiece gone, his tie loosened. Hell of a party, he says. I should have just lied. No, Kent says firmly. You should have had a father who didn't need his children to perform like circus animals. The wind picks up, carrying the smell of salt and the distant sound of slot machines. Behind them, the Leary crown towers against the night sky, its neon crown glowing like false gold, like a promise that was never meant to be kept. 3 weeks pass like water circling a drain. November settles over Atlantic City with cold rain and empty beaches. The kind of weather that keeps people inside the casinos longer, feeding more quarters into slots, chasing losses with desperation. King Leary has moved into Gina's mansion in Ventnor Heights, a sprawling Mediterranean-style estate 3 miles from the boardwalk. It sits behind iron gates and manicured hedges, all white stone and terracotta tiles, the kind of house that appears in architecture magazines. Gina's husband Donald got it in some bankruptcy deal back in '89, and they filled it with the kind of art people buy because other people say it's valuable. King's 30-man security detail has been reduced to 15. It happened gradually, reasonably. Gina sat him down in her marble kitchen with its Viking stove and sub-zero refrigerator, explained it over coffee and croissants. Daddy, 30 men is excessive. You're not running the casinos anymore. You're retired. You don't need a small army following you around. It's expensive. It's intimidating to our friends. And honestly, it makes you look paranoid. 15 is more than adequate. He argued, of course, pounded the granite countertop hard enough to make the china rattle. But Gina just smiled, that patient smile, the one that says, I'm tolerating your tantrum, and eventually he gave in. What choice did he have? She controlled the purse strings now, the crown's accounts, the operating budgets. All of it flowed through Gina and Regina's new corporate structure, Leary Sisters LLC. So 15 men instead of 30. It seems like a small thing until you've spent 40 years never walking anywhere without a wall of muscle between you and the world. King sits in the mansion's game room now, mid-afternoon on a Tuesday, playing solitaire at a felt-covered poker table. Through the French doors, he can see his remaining security guys standing around the pool, bored, smoking cigarettes. Half of them are new hires, younger guys who don't remember the old days, who look at him like he's a relic instead of a legend. His personal assistant, Maria, who managed his schedule for 12 years, was let go last week. Budget cuts, Regina explained during Sunday dinner at her shore house in Margate. We're streamlining operations, Daddy. Maria was making $80,000 a year to basically keep your calendar. I can do that. We're family. His driver, Tony, who knew every back route in New Jersey, every cop who could be paid to look the other way, gone. You can use our drivers, Gina said. Share resources. It's more efficient. His private chef, his tailor who came to the house, his masseuse, his personal barber, all disappeared one by one. Each departure explained as reasonable, as necessary, as the natural consequence of retirement. King flips another card, blackjack on red queen, and tries not to think about how the walls are closing in. Eddie Gloucester arrives at the mansion at 3 o'clock, carrying a leather portfolio stuffed with paperwork. He's been managing the operational side of the transition, making sure the casinos run smoothly under the new ownership structure. He finds King in the game room and pulls up a chair. How you holding up, King? I'm bored out of my skull. Nobody tells me anything anymore. I call the Crown to check the weekend numbers. They transfer me around like I'm some schmuck asking about the buffet hours. Eddie grimaces. Yeah, about that. Gina sent a memo last week. All information requests from you have to go through her office first. She says it's to avoid confusion in the chain of command. King's face darkens. Chain of command. I built that goddamn casino. I am the chain of command. Not anymore. Legally, you signed over operational control. You're retired, remember? The word retired lands like a punch. King stands abruptly, the chair scraping against marble. I need to get out of this house. I'm going to the Crown. They're having that high roller tournament tonight. The one I started back in '87. I should be there. King, I don't care what you think. Get me a car. 20 minutes later. King pulls up to the Leary Crown Casino in a black town car driven by one of Gina's usual drivers, a kid who can't be more than 25. Only 3 security guys accompany him instead of the usual 8. Budget constraints, they told him. You're just going to the casino, not a war zone. The valet recognizes him, at least, rushing to open the door. Mr. Leary, good to see you, sir. King palms him a $100 bill from the roll he still carries, and it feels good, feels like power, like the old days. He walks through the front entrance, past the rows of slot machines, dinging and flashing, through the poker room where dealers shuffle cards in precise mechanical motions, toward the high roller suite on the second floor. That's where he encounters the first locked door. The elevator to the VIP floor requires a keycard now. His keycard, the one he's carried for 30 years, doesn't work. The little light blinks red, red, red. One of his security guys tries his card. Same result. A pit boss in a burgundy vest approaches, young guy, maybe 30, doesn't even recognize King at first. Sir, the high roller area is restricted access. You'll need authorization from management. King stares at him like he's speaking Mandarin. I'm King Leary. I own this casino. Owned, sir? Past tense? It's under new management now, and Ms. Reynolds has very specific protocols about VIP access. If you'd like, I can call her office and call her office. This is my tournament. I started it. I personally invited half those players up there. The pit boss's expression is professionally sympathetic and completely unmoved. I understand, sir, but I have my orders. Without proper authorization, I can't let you up. King stands there in the middle of his own casino floor, the sound of slot machines chirping around him like mechanical birds, mocking his impotence. People walk past. Some recognize him. Most don't. He's becoming invisible in the empire he built with his own hands. His cell phone rings. It's Gina. Daddy, I heard you came to the Crown without telling anyone. I don't need permission to visit my own goddamn casino. It's not your casino anymore. And yes, you do need permission. We talked about this. You can't just show up unannounced and disrupt operations. You're confusing the staff. Undermining the new management structure. Management structure. Gina, I ran these places for 36 years. I think I know how they work. Her voice gets colder, sharper. You ran them. Past tense, Daddy. Now Regina and I run them, and we're doing it our way. Modern management techniques, efficiency protocols, profit optimization. The old way was sloppy. Too much nepotism, too much dead weight. We're cutting the fat. I'm not fat, Gina. I'm your father. Then act like a retired father and stop trying to backseat drive. Go back to the house. Donald's chef is making ossobuco tonight. It's your favorite. She hangs up before he can respond. King rides back to Ventnor Heights in silence, watching the city lights blur past the tinted windows. The 3 security guys don't say a word. They know better. When they pull up to the gate, King notices 2 of his longtime guards, Bruno and Vic, carrying boxes to their cars. What's going on? King demands, getting out of the town car. Bruno looks embarrassed. Vic won't meet his eyes. We got let go. King Ms. Reynolds said she's bringing in a new security company, some corporate outfit from Philadelphia. She's keeping 6 of the guys, letting the rest of us go. 6. 6 guys. King's voice rises to a shout. I'm down to 6 guys now, she said. You don't need more than that for a retired civilian. Those were her exact words. Retired civilian. King storms into the house, his footsteps echoing on the imported Italian tile. He finds Gina in her home office, a pristine room of white furniture and glass surfaces, typing on her laptop. 6 men, Gina. You're cutting me down to 6. She doesn't look up from the screen. 6 is generous, considering you barely leave the house. Most retired men don't have any security at all. I'm not most retired men. I'm King Leary. I got enemies. Had enemies. Past tense again, Daddy. You're out of the game. Nobody cares about you anymore. The words hit harder than any physical blow. Nobody cares about you anymore. He stands there, 80 years old, feeling every single year suddenly press down on his shoulders like wet concrete. I want to go stay with Regina for a while. Get out of your hair since I'm such a burden. Gina finally looks up, and there's something like triumph in her eyes. Of course, I'll call her. Let her know you're coming. She has that lovely house in Margate. Very comfortable. 2 days later, King arrives at Regina's shore house with his reduced security detail. His remaining possessions, his shrinking sense of self. The house is smaller than Gina's mansion. A modern grey box of steel and glass perched on the dunes, all sharp angles and floor-to-ceiling windows. Regina greets him at the door in yoga pants and a cashmere sweater, kiss on both cheeks, European style. Daddy, so wonderful to have you. Come in, come in. Marcus is at a construction site, but he'll be back for dinner. The first night is fine, good, even. Regina cooks, or pretends to, actually has it catered, but plates it herself. They eat Chilean sea bass and drink expensive Chardonnay on the deck, watching the November sun set over the grey Atlantic. The second night, Regina mentions the cars. Daddy, about your car collection at the Crown's garage. The Bentley, the 2 Mercedes, the vintage Cadillac. We need that space for valet overflow during the holiday season. Gina and I think it's time to sell them. You're not driving anymore anyway. Not driving because you took away my driver. We offered you access to shared drivers. You refused. I want my own driver. Someone who works for me, not for you and your sister. Regina's smile doesn't waver. That's not financially feasible anymore. The estate is generating less revenue than projected. We're all making sacrifices. Less revenue. The casinos are printing money, always have been, but suddenly there's less revenue. King's no fool. He knows creative accounting when he hears it. The third night, he overhears Regina on the phone with Gina. He's not trying to eavesdrop, but sound carries in these modern houses. All hard surfaces and no carpets to absorb the words. He's insufferable. Gina complains constantly, demands things, acts like he still runs everything. How long did you put up with him? Gina's voice crackles through the speakerphone. 3 weeks was my limit. You want me to take him back? God, no. Can we put him in one of the condos? Somewhere small where he can't bother anyone. Mother's old condo in Brigantine. The 1 bedroom. Perfect. We'll call it transitional housing while we figure out long-term arrangements. They're talking about him like he's a problem to be solved. A piece of furniture that doesn't fit the decor anymore. King pretends he didn't hear the conversation. At breakfast the next morning, he sits at Regina's glass dining table eating scrambled eggs that taste like cardboard, watching seagulls dive for scraps on the beach below. His hands shake slightly as he lifts the coffee cup. Age or rage, or the horrible dawning realization that he's made a catastrophic mistake. Marcus arrives home that afternoon with Edwin Gloucester, Gary's illegitimate son. They're huddled in the study talking business, voices low, and when King tries to join them, Marcus actually closes the door in his face. Private business discussion, King. Nothing that concerns you anymore. Nothing that concerns him. His own son-in-law, talking about his own casinos, and it doesn't concern him. Edwin has been circling the family like a shark for weeks now, ever since the birthday party. He's always been the hungry one, the son born wrong, watching his legitimate half-brother Eddie get everything while he scraped for recognition. Now the power structure is shifting, and Edwin smells opportunity in the chaos. He's been feeding Regina information, suggesting ways to consolidate control, slowly poisoning the well against anyone loyal to the old regime. That evening, Regina sits King down in the living room. The Atlantic crashes against the beach outside, louder now, November turning mean as December approaches. Daddy, we need to talk about your remaining security detail. Don't tell me you're cutting it again. We're eliminating it entirely. 6 men to guard 1 retired man is absurd. We've hired a private security company that monitors all our properties. You'll be covered under that umbrella. Covered under an umbrella. Like I'm a house, not a person. Regina's patience, never strong to begin with, cracks. You're acting like a child. Gina and I have been incredibly generous, letting you stay in our homes, feeding you, accommodating your demands. But you're not the king anymore, Daddy. You're just an old man who gave away his kingdom and now regrets it. The truth of it, spoken plain, sits between them like broken glass. I want to call Cordelia. Absolutely not. She disrespected you, humiliated you in public. She made her choice. Maybe she was the only one telling the truth. Regina stands abruptly, her cashmere sweater perfect, her face hard as the steel beams in her house. If you want to grovel to that ungrateful bitch, be my guest. But don't expect sympathy from Gina or me when she slams the door in your face. We're the ones who stood by you. We're the ones who professed our love. Remember? She walks out, leaving King alone in the living room with its abstract art and uncomfortable modern furniture. He finds his cell phone, his hands still shaking, and scrolls through the contacts. Cordelia's number is still there. He hovers his thumb over it for 5 full minutes before putting the phone down. Pride, his oldest companion, his most faithful enemy. That night, Edwin Gloucester corners Eddie in the parking garage of the Diamond Palace Casino in Vegas, where Eddie has flown for an operational review. The concrete structure is mostly empty at 2 in the morning, just a few cars scattered across levels. Security cameras that Edwin has already confirmed have convenient blind spots. Brother, Edwin says, stepping out from behind a concrete pillar. We need to talk. Eddie jumps, hand going to his chest. Jesus, Edwin, you scared the hell out of me. Sorry, didn't mean to startle you. Just wanted to catch you alone. It's about Dad. What about him? Edwin pulls out his phone, shows Eddie a series of text messages. They're fabricated, created by Edwin himself using a burner phone, but they look real enough. Messages, supposedly from Gary Gloucester to old associates, talking about skimming money from the new corporate structure, hiding assets offshore, preparing to betray Gina and Regina's trust. Dad's been stealing, Edwin says, his voice heavy with fake regret. I found these on his computer. He's setting up offshore accounts, moving money. I think he's planning to disappear with a chunk of the reorganization funds. Eddie stares at the messages, his face going pale. This can't be real. Dad's terrified of being poor again. You know his history, growing up in those row houses in Camden, eating government cheese. He's panicking, thinking Gina and Regina will cut him loose, like they cut King loose. So he's protecting himself. We need to confront him. No, Edwin says quickly. If we confront him, he'll just deny everything and hide the evidence better. We need to tell the sisters, let them handle it legally. Otherwise, we're all implicated. Eddie nods slowly, his loyalty to his father warring with his belief in doing the right thing. Edwin has played him perfectly, knowing Eddie's greatest weakness is his rigid sense of ethics. His need to follow rules even when they destroy the people he loves. Back in Margate, King Leary stands on Regina's deck in the cold November wind, watching storm clouds gather on the horizon. The weather report mentioned a nor'easter coming, possibly a bad one, but the coast has seen 1,000 storms. They always pass. His phone buzzes. A text from Gina. Dad, Regina and I have discussed it. You need your own space. We're moving you to a condo in Brigantine tomorrow. 1 bedroom, fully furnished, very comfortable. This arrangement isn't working. He types back with shaking fingers. You're throwing me out. The response comes immediately. We're giving you independence. Isn't that what you want? What he wants. King Leary, who once owned 5 casinos and made politicians nervous, no longer knows what he wants except to turn back time, to stand on that stage again and tell Cordelia he's sorry, to tear up the paperwork that divided his empire, to be anything other than this diminished ghost haunting the edges of his former life. The wind picks up, carrying the smell of the coming storm, and the first drops of rain begin to fall. The Brigantine condo is a joke. 5th floor of a building that smells like mildew and old cooking oil. 1 bedroom with a Murphy bed. A kitchenette with a mini fridge. A bathroom where the shower drips constantly. The furniture looks like it came from a roadside motel going out of business. King stands in the middle of the 400 square feet that now constitutes his entire kingdom and feels something crack inside his chest. Gina and Regina don't even help him move in. They send 2 guys from Marcus's construction crew with King's remaining possessions. 3 suitcases of clothes. A box of personal items. His collection of casino chips from properties he used to own. No security detail at all now. The building has a buzzer system, Regina explained over the phone. You're perfectly safe. December arrives with ice in its teeth. The nor'easter the weathermen predicted turns out to be worse than expected. A monster storm system crawling up the coast from the Carolinas. The news channels show satellite imagery, this massive spiral of white moving like a predator toward the Jersey shore. King tries calling both daughters repeatedly. Gina's phone goes to voicemail. Regina blocks his number. He takes the bus, the actual public bus, down Atlantic Avenue to Regina's house in Margate. The wind is already picking up, whipping sand across the road, when he arrives at her gate and presses the intercom. Regina, it's me. Let me in. Her voice crackles through the speaker, distorted and distant. Daddy, now's not a good time. The storm's coming. We're boarding up windows. Exactly. Let me wait out the storm with you. This condo isn't safe. It's right on the water, and I'm alone up there. You'll be fine. The building's been through dozens of storms. Regina, please. I'm your father. Silence for a long moment, just the wind howling and the intercom static. Then, you stopped being my father when you made us perform like trained seals for our inheritance. You want to know the truth, Daddy. Gina and I have hated you for years. Every cruel word, every time you made us feel small, every son you wished we were instead of daughters. We earned this empire putting up with your bullshit. Now it's ours, and you're nothing. Go back to your condo. The intercom cuts off with a click. King stands at the gate as the first fat raindrops begin to fall, and something inside him that's been cracking finally shatters completely. He starts walking, not back to the bus stop, but down the beach road, into the wind, his thin jacket already soaked through. At the Diamond Palace in Vegas, Gina and Regina hold a video conference with their lawyers and accountants. Eddie Gloucester sits in, his face grey with the burden of what he's done. The fabricated evidence against his father Gary sits in a folder on the table. "We're filing embezzlement charges," Gina says flatly. "Gary Gloucester has stolen approximately $2 million from the reorganization funds. We have documentation, we have testimony from his son, Edwin, and we're pressing full criminal charges." Eddie wants to object, wants to say, "Wait, let's investigate further," but the words stick in his throat. He chose the law over his father, chose what seemed right over what was loyal, and now he has to live with it. Gary Gloucester is arrested at his home in Longport at 6 in the evening, just as the storm makes landfall. Police cars with flashing lights, FBI agents because it crosses state lines, his wife crying on the front steps. He doesn't even understand what he's being charged with, keeps saying there's been a mistake, some terrible mistake. Edwin watches from his car across the street, a small smile playing at his lips. With Gary gone, with Eddie discredited by association, the CFO position opens up. And who better to fill it than someone young, hungry, someone already trusted by the new regime? Someone like Edwin Gloucester. The nor'easter hits the Jersey Shore at 7 p.m. with sustained winds of 65 miles per hour and gusts approaching 90. The boardwalk takes a beating, sections of railing torn away, vendor stalls exploding into kindling. The ocean surges over the seawalls, flooding the streets with grey-green water full of debris and foam. King Leary walks through it like a man who's already drowned. He's been wandering for 2 hours, soaked to the bone, his silver hair plastered to his skull, his designer clothes reduced to rags. He's ranting, yelling at the storm, at God, at the universe that allowed him to become this thing, this discarded shell. "You think you're powerful," he screams into the wind. "You think this storm means anything? I've survived worse. I built an empire from nothing. I broke men who thought they were stronger than me." Lightning cracks across the sky, illuminating the churning ocean. Thunder follows immediately, so loud it feels like the world splitting open. He staggers past the Leary Crown Casino, its neon crown dark now, emergency shutters pulled down over the windows. The place is locked up tight, everyone sheltering inside or evacuated. King pounds on the doors with his fists, leaving bloody smears on the glass. "Let me in. This is my casino. Mine." Nobody answers. Nobody hears him over the storm. He wanders further down the boardwalk, past shuttered arcades and boarded-up saltwater taffy shops, past the twisted wreckage of a hot dog stand that the wind has peeled open like a tin can. Rain lashes his face, salt spray mixing with fresh water. The world reduced to shades of grey and black, and the occasional flash of lightning that turns everything white as bone. King's mind is going, slipping its moorings like a boat in the storm. He can't tell anymore what's memory and what's present. Can't distinguish between the empire he built and the nothing he's become. He sees his younger self in every reflection, 30 years old and hungry, making his first big deal, breaking his first rival. He sees his wife, dead 15 years now, looking at him with disappointment from beyond the grave. "I gave them everything." He screams at her ghost, or at the storm, or at God. "I built them a kingdom and they threw me away like garbage. What was I supposed to do? Let them take it without earning it, without proving they loved me?" A figure emerges from the darkness ahead, hunched against the wind, and for a moment King thinks it's death itself come to collect him. But then lightning flashes and he sees it's Kent Morrison, dressed in a torn windbreaker and jeans soaked through, carrying a flashlight that barely penetrates the rain. King, Jesus Christ, I've been looking everywhere for you. Kent grabs his arm, tries to pull him toward shelter. But King fights him, surprisingly strong for an 80-year-old man in the late stages of hypothermia. Get away from me. You're fired. I fired you. You did. And it was stupid then, and it's stupid now. Come on, there's an old maintenance shed under the boardwalk. We can wait out the worst of it. I don't need your help. Yes, you do. You need help from anyone who'll give it, because your daughters sure as hell aren't coming. The truth of it cuts through King's delirium. He stops fighting, lets Kent half drag, half carry him down the beach access stairs to the underbelly of the boardwalk. There's a small concrete structure here, a maintenance shed, where workers store tools and cleaning supplies. Kent kicks the door open, the lock already rusted through from decades of salt air. Inside, it's marginally drier. Water leaks through the floorboards above, and the wind howls through gaps in the concrete, but it's shelter. Kent has a battery-powered camping lantern that throws weak yellow light across the cramped space. He finds some old beach towels, crusty with mildew, but better than nothing, and wraps them around King's shaking shoulders. How did you find me? King asks, his teeth chattering so hard he can barely form words. I've been watching. After they cut you loose, I kept tabs. Called in favors with some of the guys still on the inside. When the storm hit and nobody knew where you were, I figured you'd do something stupid. Looks like I was right. King laughs, a broken sound that turns into a sob. I threw away everything, Kent. Cordelia tried to tell me the truth and I destroyed her for it. My other daughters, they never loved me. They were just waiting for their chance to tear me apart. I know. How do I fix this? Kent is quiet for a long moment, listening to the storm rage outside. I don't know if you can. Some things, once broken, don't go back together. Through the gaps in the walls, they can see the ocean surge up the beach. Black water full of debris, reaching further inland with each wave. The storm is getting worse, the kind of nor'easter that makes history, that people will remember decades later. At the Leary Crown Casino, Eddie Gloucester stands in the security office watching the storm coverage on a bank of monitors. The news shows flooding in Ventnor, power outages spreading across the coast, emergency services overwhelmed. One reporter, standing on a relatively protected street, mentions that police are concerned about several missing persons, including elderly residents who didn't evacuate. His phone buzzes. It's a text from Edwin. Heard your dad's pleading not guilty. Embarrassing for the family. Maybe you should distance yourself publicly. Eddie stares at the message, feeling sick. His father is sitting in a cell right now, confused and terrified, accused of crimes he didn't commit. And Eddie's own testimony helped put him there. The evidence seemed so solid when Edwin showed it to him. But now, in the quiet of the security office, with the storm raging outside, doubts creep in like cold water under a door. What if Edwin fabricated it? What if this was a play for power, and Eddie was the useful idiot who made it possible? He calls his father's lawyer, a decision that comes 3 hours too late to prevent the arrest, but might, just might, prevent the complete destruction of an innocent man. Back under the boardwalk, King has descended into full delirium. He's ranting about deals made in back rooms, about politicians bought and sold, about the bodies in the Pine Barrens that everyone knows about, but nobody talks about. Kent just listens, keeping the old man warm, watching for signs of complete system failure. I should have listened to Cordelia, King says, suddenly lucid. his eyes focusing on Kent in the lamplight. "She was the only one who loved me enough to tell the truth." "Yeah, you should have. Where is she now?" "Last I heard, she took a job managing a bed and breakfast down in Cape May. Small place, nothing fancy. She's making it on her own, no help from family money." "Cape May?" King's eyes are distant. "That's 20 miles south. Might as well be the moon." The wind screams overhead, and a section of boardwalk tears away with a sound like artillery fire. Through the opening, they can see it cartwheel through the air before crashing into the churning surf. The storm is literally tearing apart the world King built, board by board, nail by nail. Kent pulls out his cell phone, checks the signal. 1 bar, flickering. "I'm calling for help. We need to get you to a hospital." "No hospitals, no doctors. Just let me sit here. You're hypothermic and probably losing your mind. We're getting help." But before Kent can dial, the phone dies, battery finally giving out. They're alone under the boardwalk with the storm tearing everything apart above them. And King Leary, who once commanded an empire, who made men fear him with a glance, who built monuments to his own ego along the Jersey shore, shivers under a mildewed beach towel and weeps for everything he's lost. The night stretches like a prison sentence. Kent and King huddle in the maintenance shed as the storm peaks around midnight, the worst of it passing directly overhead. The sound is apocalyptic, wind and rain and ocean combining into one continuous roar that makes thought impossible, that reduces existence to the simple animal act of surviving the next minute, then the next. King drifts in and out of consciousness. When he's awake, he rambles disconnected words about his childhood in Newark, about his first wife, who died of cancer before the girls were grown, about the man he killed in '63 with his bare hands behind a poker room in Reno. Kent listens to these confessions, these secrets, spilling out like blood from a wound, and says nothing. What judgment can one broken man pass on another? Around 3 in the morning, the wind finally begins to ease. The rain continues but loses its violence, becoming merely heavy instead of biblical. Kent risks looking outside and sees a landscape transformed. The boardwalk is half gone, torn away in sections, leaving skeletal support beams jutting from the sand like broken ribs. Debris covers everything, unrecognizable chunks of buildings and vehicles, someone's entire kitchen scattered across the beach. "We need to move," Kent says. "Storm's passing. We need to get you warm and dry before you die of exposure." King doesn't respond. His eyes are open but unfocused, staring at something Kent can't see. His breathing is shallow, irregular. Kent checks his pulse and finds it thready, weak, the heart muscles struggling to keep pushing blood through a body that's given up. Kent makes a decision. He lifts King, surprised at how light the old man has become, like his bones have turned hollow. He carries him up the beach, access stairs, or what remains of them, and starts walking south down Atlantic Avenue. The road is flooded ankle deep, full of debris, power lines down everywhere, sparking in the water. Kent walks around them, through them when he has no choice, carrying King like a groom carries a bride over the threshold. After half a mile, he sees lights. A fire station, still operational, generators running, paramedics and firefighters loading equipment, preparing to venture out now that the worst has passed. Kent stumbles into the bay doors and collapses, King still in his arms. This man needs help. Hypothermia, possible cardiac event, severe shock. They swarm immediately, professional and efficient. King is loaded onto a gurney, blankets piled on, 4 lines inserted. A paramedic checks his vitals and exchanges a look with his partner that Kent knows means the old man might not make it. "You family?" one of the firefighters asks Kent. "Close enough. His daughters won't come." What about other family? Someone we should call? Kent thinks for a moment, then gives them Cordelia's number from memory. Try her. She's the youngest daughter. Down in Cape May. The ambulance leaves with sirens wailing, cutting through the post-storm silence. Kent sits on a bench outside the fire station, watching the grey dawn break over the devastated shore, and wonders if King Leary will live to see another sunrise. Cordelia's phone rings at 4:30 in the morning. She's been awake all night anyway, riding out the storm in the small bed. And breakfast, she manages. A Victorian house, 2 blocks from the Cape May beach. The storm hit here too, though not as badly as Atlantic City. Some roof damage, flooding in the basement, but the structure held. Miss Leary, this is Atlantic City Medical Center. Your father has been admitted in critical condition. Severe hypothermia, possible pneumonia. He's asking for you. She hasn't spoken to her father in 6 weeks, not since that night at the birthday party when he disowned her in front of 500 people. Part of her wants to hang up, to let him reap what he's sown. But a larger part, the part that really does love him despite everything, can't do it. I'll be there in 2 hours, she says. She drives north through the aftermath, past downed trees and flooded roads, past National Guard checkpoints and power crews working to restore electricity. The sun rises over the destruction, turning everything gold and red. Beautiful in the way disasters can be when you're not the one buried under them. At the hospital, she finds Kent in the waiting room, still soaked, wrapped in a donated blanket. He stands when he sees her. He's alive, barely. They've got him on oxygen, antibiotics, warming therapy. Doctor says the next 24 hours will tell. What happened? Kent tells her everything. The condo in Brigantine, the systematic destruction of King's security and dignity. The storm, the night under the boardwalk. As he talks, Cordelia's face cycles through emotions, anger, sadness, vindication, pity. My sisters did this to him. Your sisters are monsters who happen to share your DNA, but your father made them possible. He taught them that love is a transaction, that family is a business deal. They're just better students than he expected. A doctor approaches, young woman in scrubs, exhaustion written in every line of her face. Family of Leon Leary. I'm his daughter. He's stable for now, but his condition is serious. The hypothermia caused cardiac arrhythmia, and there are signs of pneumonia developing in both lungs. We're doing everything we can, but at his age, with the stress his body has endured, I can't make any promises. He's asking for someone named Cordelia. That's me, room 417. But I should warn you, he's not entirely lucid. The hypothermia, the stress, possibly early dementia. He's confused, agitated. Try to keep him calm. Cordelia walks down the sterile hospital corridor, fluorescent lights humming overhead, and prepares herself to face the man who created her and then destroyed her, who built an empire and threw it away on pride, who is now lying in a hospital bed, small and fragile and human in ways he spent 80 years trying not to be. She pushes open the door to room 417, and there he is. King Leary, the Lion of Atlantic City, reduced to a shaking figure under white sheets. Oxygen tubes in his nose, monitors beeping the uncertain rhythm of a failing heart. His eyes find hers, and something like recognition flickers there, mixed with shame and hope and the desperate need for forgiveness. Cordelia, he whispers. Baby girl, I'm so sorry. Cordelia sits in the chair beside her father's hospital bed, holding his hand. It feels like bird bones wrapped in paper-thin skin, nothing like the powerful grip she remembers from childhood. The hand that could crush a grown man's knuckles in a handshake, that signed contracts worth millions without trembling. You came, King whispers, his voice barely audible over the beep of monitors and hiss of oxygen. After everything, you came? Of course I came. You're my father. I don't deserve that word. Father, I was a tyrant, a fool. I threw away the only daughter who really loved me because she would underperform like a circus animal. His eyes fill with tears, spilling down his hollow cheeks. Gina and Regina, they took everything. Not just the casinos, but my dignity, my humanity. They treated me like garbage, and I let them because I gave them the power to do it. Don't talk. You need to rest. No. He grips her hand with surprising strength. I need to say this while I can still think straight. The fog comes and goes now. Sometimes I don't know where I am, who I am, but right now, I'm here, and I need you to know, I'm sorry, for the party, for cutting you off, for being so blind, and proud, and stupid. You were right about everything. Cordelia feels her own tears coming, years of pain and anger and love all mixed together. I forgive you, Dad. I forgive you. They sit in silence for a while, just holding hands, while outside the hospital window the December sun climbs higher over the damaged city. Emergency vehicles still wail in the distance. The cleanup from the storm will take months, maybe years. Some things, once broken, never fully heal. Kent appears in the doorway, now wearing dry clothes borrowed from hospital, lost and found, his grey hair combed back. Cordelia, you should know. Your sisters are downstairs. Someone tipped them off that King is here. Let them come, King says, his voice suddenly harder. Some of the old steel returning. I want to see their faces. 10 minutes later, Gina and Regina stride into the hospital room like they own it, which in a sense they do. The Leary family has donated millions to this hospital over the years, has a wing named after them. They're dressed impeccably despite the storm. Gina in a black pantsuit, Regina in designer jeans and a leather jacket. They stop short when they see Cordelia. What is she doing here? Gina demands. Taking care of our father, Cordelia says evenly. Something you two clearly have no interest in doing. Regina's laugh is sharp, brittle. Taking care of him. Is that what you call it? We took care of him for weeks, Cordelia. Fed him, housed him, put up with his demands and his tantrums. We earned our inheritance dealing with his bullshit. You disappeared. You tortured him. Systematically stripped away everything that made him feel human. You left him to die in a storm. We left him in a perfectly adequate condo, Gina snaps. What he did after that was his choice. We're not responsible for his mental decline. King watches this exchange with growing horror, seeing his daughters clearly for perhaps the first time. Gina and Regina don't even look at him, don't acknowledge his presence in the bed beyond an object being discussed. To them, he's already a corpse, an inconvenience, a liability. Get out, he says, his voice weak but clear. Both of you, get out of my sight. Gladly, Regina says. But first, you should know, we're having you declared mentally incompetent. We've already consulted lawyers. A man who wanders into a hurricane, who can't manage his own basic care, who's showing signs of dementia, that man shouldn't have access to any remaining assets or decision-making authority. We're seeking full conservatorship. You can't do that. We can and we are. The paperwork will be filed by end of business today. From now on, every medical decision, every financial transaction goes through us. For your own protection, of course. Gina steps closer to the bed, her voice dropping to something almost intimate, almost kind, which makes it crueler somehow. You did this to yourself, Daddy. You taught us that power is everything, that sentiment is weakness. That in this world you either control or get controlled. We're just better students than you expected. You should be proud. They leave together, heels clicking on linoleum, leaving a silence like a grave behind them. King lies back against the pillows, something breaking in his eyes. They're right. I created them. I made those monsters. No, Cordelia says fiercely. You made mistakes, but they chose who to become. They could have been better. They chose not to be. In a conference room 3 floors down, Edwin Gloucester meets with Gina and Regina. He's been promoted to interim CFO, pending final approval. Gary's arrest, creating the perfect opportunity. He brings them financial projections, cost-cutting measures, ways to squeeze more profit from the casino empire. Your father's hospitalization is actually good timing, Edwin says, smooth as snake oil. While he's incapacitated, we can restructure some of the older contracts. Clean house of the remaining loyalists, really streamline operations. By the time he recovers, if he recovers, everything will be locked in place. What about Eddie? Regina asks. Gary's legitimate son. He's been asking questions about the embezzlement charges. Edwin's smile doesn't reach his eyes. Eddie's loyalty to his father makes him a liability. I'd suggest reassigning him somewhere far from decision-making, maybe managing the Renault property. That's far enough from the center of power to keep him out of our hair. Gina nods appreciatively. You think strategically, Edwin. I like that. Your father let sentiment cloud his judgment. You're clearer. I learned from watching powerful people make mistakes, Edwin says. I learned what not to do. Eddie Gloucester sits in his father's empty house in Longport, surrounded by 30 years of accumulated life. Family photos on the mantle, his mother's collection of shorebird figurines, his father's accounting certificates framed on the wall. The house smells like his childhood, like Sunday dinners and birthday cakes and normalcy. His father is in the Atlantic County Jail awaiting trial, and Eddie put him there. He opens his laptop and goes through the evidence again. The text messages Edwin showed him, the offshore account numbers, the transfer records. He's an operations manager, not a forensic accountant, but he knows enough to be dangerous. And now, looking closer, really looking, he sees the inconsistencies, timestamps that don't make sense. Message threads with no context. Account numbers that lead to banks his father would never use. His phone rings. It's his father's lawyer, a bulldog named Sheila Rothstein who's been practicing criminal defense for 40 years. Eddie, we need to talk. I've had a forensic accountant go through everything. These documents are fabricated. Professionally done, but fake. The metadata shows they were created on a computer at the Diamond Palace, not your father's machine. Someone set him up. Eddie's stomach drops. Edwin, that would be my guess. He had motive, means, and opportunity. The question is, can we prove it? I can prove it. I helped him do it. I believed him. The shame of it crashes over Eddie like a cold wave. He betrayed his own father, helped destroy an innocent man, all because he was played like a fiddle by his ambitious half-brother. Then you need to come forward. Make a statement. Your testimony can clear your father and put Edwin away. It'll destroy my career, my reputation. Sheila's voice is hard. Your father is sitting in a cell for crimes he didn't commit. What's more important, your career or his life? Eddie knows the answer. He's always known it, from the moment doubt first crept in. He just needed someone to say it out loud. I'll be at your office in an hour. At the hospital, King is improving physically, but deteriorating mentally. The doctors explain it to Cordelia in careful medical terms. The trauma, the hypothermia, the stress, possibly accelerating underlying dementia. He has moments of clarity surrounded by hours of confusion. Sometimes he thinks Cordelia is his dead wife. Sometimes he's back in 1968, breaking ground on the Leary crown. Sometimes he doesn't know where he is at all, just frightened and lost, calling for people who were decades gone. Kent visits daily, bringing food and newspapers, though King rarely understands what he's reading anymore. They sit together in comfortable silence, two old men at the end of the line, watching the world move on without them. "I should have listened to you," King says, during one of his lucid moments. "That night at the party, you tried to warn me. Water under the bridge, King. You lost your job because of me. 27 years, gone because I was too proud to hear the truth." Kent shrugs. "I've had worse jobs, and watching you come back from the edge, that's worth something. Not everything, but something." Cordelia spends every day at the hospital, managing her Cape May bed and breakfast by phone, sleeping in the chair beside her father's bed. She feeds him when he forgets how to use a fork. She reads to him when he can't focus. She holds his hand through the nightmares that come every time he closes his eyes. Dreams where he's back in the storm, back under the boardwalk, drowning in darkness. On the 5th day, a process server arrives with legal papers. The conservatorship petition, signed by Gina and Regina, supported by 2 psychiatrists who evaluated King for 30 minutes each and declared him incompetent to manage his own affairs. "They're taking everything," Cordelia tells Kent in the hallway. "Medical decisions, financial control, even where he lives. They want to put him in a nursing home, the cheapest one they can find that won't generate bad publicity. Can you fight it? With what? I don't have money for lawyers. I manage a bed and breakfast that barely breaks even. My sisters own an empire." Kent thinks for a moment, then pulls out his phone. "I know some people. Old school casino guys who remember when King ran things, who owe him favors. Let me make some calls." At the Atlantic County Jail, Gary Gloucester sits in an orange jumpsuit in a consultation room, listening to his lawyer explain that his son Eddie has come forward with evidence proving the charges are fabricated. "Eddie did this." Gary's voice breaks. "He believed I was guilty. He was manipulated by Edwin, but he's making it right now. He's testifying against his brother, cooperating fully with prosecutors. The charges against you will be dropped, and Edwin will be arrested for fraud, conspiracy, and half a dozen other charges." Gary should feel relief. Instead, he feels the terrible weight of family betrayal. The knowledge that one son destroyed him while the other saved him, and neither outcome is simple or clean. "I want to see Eddie. I'll arrange it." That evening, Edwin Gloucester sits in the executive office at the Leary Crown, King's old office, feet up on the mahogany desk, drinking 30-year-old scotch from the bar. He's reviewing the new organizational charts, his name at the top of the financial hierarchy, when his phone rings. It's Regina, her voice tight with panic. "Eddie's talking to prosecutors. He's claiming the evidence against Gary was fabricated. He's pointing at you." Edwin's feet come off the desk. "He can't prove anything. He can and he will. His testimony combined with forensic analysis will bury you. You need to run, Edwin. Tonight, we'll claim we were deceived too, that you fooled all of us. You're throwing me under the bus. We're protecting ourselves. That's business. You understand business, don't you?" She hangs up. Edwin stares at the phone, then at the office around him, the kingdom he almost claimed, slipping through his fingers. He drinks the rest of the scotch, considering his options, none of them good. Edwin doesn't run far. He makes it to Philadelphia, checks into a motel off I-95 with neon vacancy signs and hourly rates, pays cash. But the FBI has been watching him since Eddie came forward, tracking his phone, his credit cards, his movements. They arrest him at 2 in the morning, 3 agents with guns drawn, finding him sitting on the bed fully dressed, like he was waiting for them. He doesn't resist, doesn't say a word, just puts his hands behind his back and lets them cuff him, his face showing nothing. In the patrol car on the way back to Atlantic City, he stares out the window at the dark highway and thinks about his whole life, about being the bastard son, the one born wrong, always watching his legitimate brother get the love and recognition he was denied. He'd been so close to winning. So close. At the county jail, father and son sit across from each other in a visitation room. Gary looks smaller somehow, diminished by days in orange jumpsuits and institutional food. Eddie can barely meet his eyes. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry." Gary reaches across the table, takes his son's hands. "I know, and I forgive you. Edwin's good at what he does. He played us both. I should have trusted you. I should have questioned more. You're young. You still believe in rules, in systems, in doing the right thing. That's not a weakness, Eddie. Don't let this make you cynical. The world needs people who believe in right and wrong." They sit together in silence, 2 men trying to rebuild trust across a chasm of betrayal. And maybe it's possible. Maybe family can survive even this. Back at Atlantic City Medical Center, the conservatorship hearing happens in King's hospital room because he's too fragile to transport to court. A judge sits at the foot of the bed with a court reporter, lawyers for both sides crowded into the small space. Gina and Regina stand against one wall, confident, prepared. Cordelia stands against the other with a lawyer Kent found, a semi-retired attorney named Maurice Frank, who owes King a favor from 30 years back. King himself lies in the bed, confused by the proceedings, occasionally calling the judge Frank Sinatra or asking what year it is. The psychiatrists testify via video conference. Yes, Mr. Leary shows signs of cognitive decline. Yes, he's prone to delusions and confusion. Yes, he requires assistance with basic activities of daily living. The case seems open and shut. Then Maurice Frank calls his witnesses. The emergency room doctor who treated King, testifying that the cognitive issues may be temporary, trauma-induced, possibly reversible with proper care and time. A neurologist explaining that hypothermia can mimic dementia symptoms, that proper evaluation requires months, not days. Kent Morrison, describing the systematic abuse and isolation that preceded King's breakdown. "Your Honor," Maurice says, his voice still strong despite his 70 years, "this man isn't incompetent. He's traumatized. There's a difference. His daughters didn't seek conservatorship to protect him. They sought it to control him, to silence him, to finish the job of erasing him from his own life." The judge, a black woman in her 50s who's heard every story the shore has to offer, looks at Gina and Regina with open skepticism. "Counselor, why weren't alternative care arrangements explored? Why is a nursing home the first option for a man of considerable means?" Gina's lawyer stumbles through an answer about appropriate medical supervision and cost management that sounds exactly like what it is. Corporate doublespeak hiding cruelty. The judge makes her ruling. Conservatorship petition is denied. However, Mr. Leary will require a medical guardian until such time as he's fully recovered. "I'm appointing his daughter, Cordelia Leary, to that role. With quarterly reviews, Ms. Reynolds and Ms. Callahan, you're prohibited from making any medical or financial decisions regarding your father without Cordelia's consent." This hearing is adjourned. Gina's face goes white with rage. Regina actually gasps, her hand flying to her throat. They've lost, publicly, legally, completely. This isn't over. Gina hisses at Cordelia on her way out. We own the casinos. We own the empire. He signed it over legally. You can play nurse all you want, but we won. Remember that. After they leave, Cordelia collapses into the chair, shaking with relief and exhaustion. Maurice Frank pats her shoulder awkwardly. You did good, kid. Your father would be proud. I mean, he will be proud when he understands what happened. King watches all of this from the bed with cloudy eyes, understanding perhaps one word in 3, but sensing something important has occurred. Did I win? He asks Cordelia. You won something, Dad. Not everything, but something. That night, alone in his hospital room, King has a moment of perfect clarity. He understands everything. What he did, what was done to him, what he's lost, what remains. The weight of it is crushing, unbearable. He unplugs his Thorth line, pulls off the oxygen tubes, stands on shaking legs, and walks to the window. 6 floors up, the lights of Atlantic City spread out before him. His city, the kingdom he built and gave away. The Leary crown is visible in the distance, its neon crown glowing against the night sky, a monument to pride and folly. He could open the window, could end it here, tonight, on his own terms. But then he thinks of Cordelia, sleeping in the chair in the hallway, exhausted from fighting for him. He thinks of Kent, loyal despite everything. He thinks of the mess he's made and the faint possibility of redemption. He gets back in bed, reattaches the oxygen, lies there in the darkness, and waits for whatever comes next. Christmas comes to Atlantic City with bitter, cold, and empty promises. The boardwalk remains half destroyed from the Nor'easter reconstruction crews working through the holidays, the sound of hammers and saws replacing the usual carnival music. The casinos stay open because casinos always stay open, but business is down. Tourists scared away by images of devastation still playing on the news. King Leary is released from the hospital 2 days before Christmas. Not cured, not whole, but stable enough for outpatient care. Cordelia takes him to her small bed and breakfast in Cape May. A Victorian house painted lavender and cream, with a wraparound porch and rooms that smell like lavender and old wood. It's humble compared to the mansions he once inhabited, but it's warm, and it's safe, and it's home. She sets him up in the best room on the 2nd floor, the one with bay windows overlooking the garden. Kent visits daily, bringing newspapers and playing chess with King on the good days. Just sitting with him on the bad ones when the fog rolls in and King forgets who he is, where he is, why everything hurts. I destroyed everything, King says one afternoon, lucid, watching snow fall on the dead garden below. 3 daughters, and I drove away the only one worth keeping. An empire, and I gave it to wolves. You're still here, Cordelia says from the doorway. That's not nothing. I'm a shell, a ghost. I built monuments and they're owned by monsters now. She sits beside him, takes his hand. Then we'll build something different, something smaller, but real. At the Leary Crown Casino, Gina and Regina rule their empire with iron efficiency. They've cut staff by 30%, reduced comps and promotions, raised table minimums, squeezed every possible dollar from operations. Profit margins are up 17%. Customer satisfaction is down 42%. They don't care about the second number, only the first. Edwin Gloucester sits in jail awaiting trial, his bail set impossibly high. The evidence against him is overwhelming. Fabricated documents, conspiracy, fraud, attempted theft of millions. His public defender tells him he's looking at 10 to 15 years in federal prison. Edwin takes the news with the same blank expression he's worn since his arrest. Emotions locked away where they can't hurt him. Eddie has been promoted to CFO, His father Gary fully exonerated and reinstated as senior financial advisor. But the victory tastes like ash. Eddie walks through the crown, seeing his half-brother's ghost in every corner, remembering how close he came to destroying his own father, how easily he was manipulated. "You did the right thing in the end," Gary tells him over dinner in early January. "That's what matters, does it?" Edwin's in jail, but Gina and Regina are still in power. They're bleeding the casinos dry, treating employees like disposable assets, destroying everything King built. "We stopped one bad guy, but the worse ones won." Gary has no answer for that. Sometimes the good guys win and everything still goes to hell. On January 15th, a bitterly cold Tuesday with wind howling off the Atlantic, Cordelia receives a phone call at the bed and breakfast. It's Maurice Frank, the lawyer. "Cordelia, you need to hear this. Gina and Regina are planning to sell. They've been in talks with a Vegas consortium, Mega Resorts International. They're selling the entire Leary casino empire, all 5 properties, for $2.3 billion. They can't do that. Dad's name is on everything. Your father signed over operational control. The corporate structure gives them full authority to make business decisions, including the sale of assets. It's legal, ironclad, and it's happening in 30 days. Cordelia feels the room tilt. They're erasing him. Everything he built, his legacy, his name on those buildings, all gone. There's more. The sale contract stipulates that the Leary name will be removed from all properties within 90 days. New owners want to rebrand completely. It'll be like your father never existed. She hangs up and goes to tell King. He's having a good day, reading the newspaper, understanding most of what he sees. When she explains about the sale, she watches something die behind his eyes. "They're selling my casinos." "Yes, Dad." "Taking my name off the buildings." "Yes." He stands slowly, walks to the window, stares out at the winter garden. When he speaks, his voice is very quiet, very cold. The old King Leary rising from the ruins, one last time. "No, I won't let them. I built that empire with my blood and sweat and years of my life. They can have the money, they can have the power, but they can't erase me. Not while I'm still breathing." "Dad, what can we do?" "They own everything." King turns to her, and she sees something frightening in his face. A shadow of the man who once made enemies disappear, who built an empire through force of will and violence when necessary. "I know things, secrets, where the bodies are buried, literal and metaphorical. Things that would destroy Gina and Regina if they came to light. Things I've kept quiet for 30 years to protect my daughters." "You'd really do that? Destroy your own children? They stopped being my children when they left me to die in a storm. Now they're just enemies wearing familiar faces." King makes phone calls from Cordelia's bed and breakfast. Old numbers memorized decades ago, voices from the past answering with surprise and suspicion. He calls Joey the Hammer Marciano, now 73 and running a waste management company in Cherry Hill. He calls Detective Frank Sullivan, retired ACPD, who looked the other way on certain matters in exchange for certain considerations. He calls Anthony Russo, former building inspector, who approved construction permits that should never have been approved. To each, he says the same thing. "I need you to remember 1978. I need you to remember what we did, what we buried, what we agreed would never see daylight. Unless you want it to see daylight now, you'll make a statement. You'll tell the truth about who gave the orders, who signed the checks, who made the bodies disappear. The old network, the foundation of blood and corruption that King's empire was built on, begins to activate like a sleeping monster waking up. By January 20th, King has assembled a file, documents proving that the Leary crown was built using Union money stolen by organized crime figures, photographs of Gina, aged 28, signing checks to shell corporations used for money laundering, evidence that Regina's husband Marcus won construction contracts through bribery and intimidation, a recorded conversation from 1991 where both daughters discuss covering up a customer's death at the Diamond Palace, an overdose swept under the rug to avoid bad publicity. If this goes public, Maurice Frank tells King, reviewing the materials, your daughters go to prison. But so do you. Maybe not long at your age and condition, but this implicates you in everything. I know, King says. I'm past caring about my own life. I just want them to understand they can't erase me. I'd rather burn everything down than let them pretend I never existed. Cordelia listens to this with growing horror. Dad, this is insane. You're planning mutual assured destruction. That's exactly what it is. I send this to the FBI, to the New Jersey Attorney General, to the press. The sale falls apart. The casinos get seized in criminal proceedings. Gina and Regina spend the rest of their lives in federal prison. Nobody wins, but at least they lose. And what about you? What about me? I get caught in the blast radius too. Daughter of a mobster, profiting from criminal enterprises. Even if I never knew, even if I never touched that world, it destroys me by association. King's face crumbles. He hadn't thought of that, or hadn't let himself think of it. In his rage and pain, he was willing to sacrifice his own redemption, but sacrificing Cordelia's future is a different calculation entirely. I'm sorry, baby girl. I'm not thinking straight. The fog, it comes and goes, and when it's here, I can't tell what's right anymore. She holds him while he weeps. This old man who once commanded an empire, now broken and desperate and confused. That night, someone breaks into the bed and breakfast. Cordelia hears glass breaking downstairs at 2 in the morning, grabs her phone, calls 911. By the time police arrive, the intruder is gone, but King's room has been ransacked. The file is missing. Every document, every photograph, every piece of evidence, stolen. Kent arrives 20 minutes later, having been called by Cordelia. He examines the broken window, the picked lock on King's door, the professional efficiency of the theft. Your sisters, he says. They knew what he was planning. They got to someone, found out about the file, sent professionals to retrieve it. How could they know? Kent thinks of the old network, the men King called. At least one of them must have warned Gina and Regina, must have decided that loyalty to the daughters who currently hold power outweighs loyalty to the father who once did. Doesn't matter how, it's gone. Your father's leverage, his last weapon, gone. King sits on his bed, surrounded by the wreckage. The drawers pulled out, papers scattered everywhere, and laughs. It's a terrible sound, not humor but the opposite. The sound of a man watching his last hope disappear. They win, he says. They always win. I taught them too well. On January 23rd, the sale of the Leary Casino Empire to Mega Resorts International is finalized. $2.3 billion transfers through banks in the Cayman Islands, lawyers in Century City, accountants in Manhattan. Gina and Regina become two of the wealthiest women in New Jersey overnight. The press coverage is enormous. Business sections calling them visionaries, modern moguls, women who took their father's legacy and maximized its value. King Leary isn't mentioned in most articles. When he is, it's as a historical footnote. Founded by Leon King Leary in 1968, the casino empire has been transformed under new management. Past tense, historical, erased. At the bed and breakfast in Cape May, King watches the news coverage on Cordelia's small television, sees his daughters giving interviews, smiling, confident, talking about their vision for the future now that they're free from the casino business, planning to invest in tech startups and real estate development. He has a massive stroke at 4:30 that afternoon. Cordelia finds him on the floor, half his face slack, unable to speak, his right side paralyzed. The ambulance takes 12 minutes to arrive, every second an eternity. At Cape Regional Medical Center, doctors work frantically, but the damage is catastrophic. Massive hemorrhagic stroke affecting the left hemisphere, prognosis grave. They're honest with Cordelia in that brutally kind way doctors have. Her father is dying. It's just a question of days or hours. She calls Gina and Regina. Neither answers. She leaves voicemails. Dad's had a stroke. He's dying. If you want to say goodbye, come now. They don't come. King Leary lingers for 3 days in the hospital, hooked to machines that breathe for him, feed him, keep his damaged heart beating against its will. He's conscious sometimes, his eyes tracking Cordelia's face, one hand occasionally squeezing hers with what little strength remains. He can't speak, the stroke having stolen language along with everything else, but she talks to him anyway. I forgive you, Dad, for everything. I know you loved us in your way. I know you were just a man, flawed and broken like everyone else. Your empire is gone, your name will come off those buildings, but that's not what matters. What matters is you came back to yourself at the end. You remembered how to love. On the evening of January 26th, Kent sits with Cordelia in the ICU waiting room, drinking bad coffee from paper cups. The fluorescent lights hum overhead, and somewhere down the hall a family is crying, their own tragedy playing out in parallel. What will you do after? Kent asks. Keep running the bed and breakfast. Live small. Try to be nothing like my family. You're already nothing like them. You're what your father should have been, would have been, if he'd been stronger. At 8:15 that night, the monitors in King's room begin to alarm. Cordelia rushes in, but there's nothing to be done. His heart, that muscle that drove him for 80 years, that powered the ambition and rage and pride that built and destroyed an empire, simply stops. The line on the monitor goes flat, a single sustained tone that sounds like the universe screaming. He dies with Cordelia holding his hand, Kent standing at the foot of the bed, and no one else in the room. No empire, no palace, no crowds, just an old man releasing his last breath, and the daughter who loved him despite everything. Gina and Regina don't attend the funeral. They send flower arrangements, expensive and tasteless, with cards that read in loving memory like the words mean anything. The service is held at a small chapel in Cape May, attended by maybe 30 people, old casino workers King helped over the years, a few retired dealers and pit bosses, Gary and Eddie Gloucester, Maurice Frank, the lawyer. Kent gives the eulogy, talking about loyalty and redemption, and the possibility of grace at the end of a wasted life. They bury King in a cemetery overlooking the Atlantic, a simple granite headstone that reads, Leon King Leary, 1914 to 1995. Builder, father, flawed. 1 week after the funeral, Cordelia is driving back to Cape May from Atlantic City after settling her father's remaining debts. It's snowing, thick wet flakes that make the roads treacherous, but she's a good driver, careful, attentive. She's thinking about her father, about forgiveness, about starting over with a clean slate. The truck that crosses the center line on the Garden State Parkway doesn't give her time to react. The driver fell asleep at the wheel, 3 hours into a double shift, exhausted and overworked. The impact is catastrophic, instant. Cordelia's small Honda Civic crushed like a tin can against the semi's massive grille, She's pronounced dead at the scene. 48 years old, the good daughter, the honest one, the one who took care of her father when no one else would, gone in a moment of random violence. Proof that the universe doesn't reward virtue or punish vice. It just exists, indifferent and cold. Kent gets the call at his apartment in Ventnor. He sits down on his couch and doesn't move for 2 hours, trying to process a cruelty so complete it defies comprehension. King and Cordelia, dead within 2 weeks of each other, the only 2 people in the whole rotten family worth saving. At Gina's mansion in Ventnor Heights, she and Regina toast their success with champagne on the terrace, watching the winter ocean. $2.3 billion split between them. Freedom from the casino business. The future bright, and theirs. We did it, Regina says, her glass raised. We actually did it. Of course we did, Gina replies. We're winners. We always have been. Neither mentions their father's death. Neither mentions Cordelia. In their world, sentiment is weakness, and looking back is for losers. They've won the game King taught them to play, and if the cost was their humanity, well, that seems like a fair trade. But winning isn't the same as happiness. In the months that follow, their triumph sours like milk left in the sun. Gina's marriage to Donald collapses, crushed under the weight of her cruelty and his complicity. Regina drinks more, needs pills to sleep, wakes up in the 3 a.m. darkness, feeling hollow. The money doesn't help. The victory doesn't satisfy. They got everything they wanted and discovered it wasn't enough. Could never be enough, because what they really wanted was impossible, to be loved without having to love back. Edwin Gloucester goes to prison for 12 years, accepts his fate with the same blank expression he wore through the trial. Eddie becomes CFO of a small regional casino in Pennsylvania, away from Atlantic City and its ghosts. Gary retires fully, moves to Arizona, tries to forget. The Leary Crown Casino is rebranded as the Mega Resort Crown in April. The giant neon crown on top is taken down by crane, cut into pieces, sold for scrap. Workers paint over King Leary's name everywhere it appears, covering decades of history with fresh coats of corporate grey. Kent Morrison stands on the boardwalk one evening in May, watching the sun set over the Atlantic, and thinks about King and Cordelia, about loyalty and love and waste. The shore goes on, the casinos keep operating, the tourists keep coming, but something essential has been lost, some connection to history and consequence. In the end, King Leary built an empire on sand, gave it to daughters who loved power more than people, and died having learned the hardest lesson, that love freely given is the only thing worth having, and by the time he understood that truth, it was far too late to matter. The waves crash against the pilings, the gulls cry overhead. The world moves on, because it always does, indifferent to tragedy, unmoved by loss, eternal and cold as the ocean itself.